My name is Emily. My parents told me I was independent, so they charged me rent while my sister lived free in the same house. They said it was fair. It wasn't. If you've ever been treated like a resource instead of family, tell me what happened to you in the comments. My parents charged me rent while my sister paid nothing, so I bought their house without telling them. The email arrived while dinner was still on the stove. Margaret's name sat in the subject line, followed by an attachment titled Updated Rent Agreement. No greeting, no warning, just a PDF. The number was higher than last month, effective next month, bolded like it was supposed to be helpful. I walked into the kitchen with my phone in hand. Did you mean to send this? Margaret didn't look up from the counter. Yes. It went up. Your sister needs support. You're independent. Across the table, my sister scrolled on her phone. No rent, no comment. The ceiling fan clicked once, then again. She lives here too, I said. Robert set his glass down harder than necessary. This house isn't yours. The sentence landed between the sink and the fridge, right where we all stood. My sister looked up then, eyebrows raised, like she was waiting for the rest of the explanation. No one added anything. Margaret wiped her hands on a towel and said the agreement was standard now. Robert nodded, eyes fixed on the floor. Questions about fairness turned into reminders about groceries, utilities, timing. The conversation slid away from money like it was fragile. My sister mentioned a weekend trip, asking who could feed the dog. Nobody asked whether the increase worked for me. The fridge light stayed open too long, humming. A magnet fell and no one picked it up. When I asked about the missing signatures, Margaret said we'd handle it later. Robert said banks liked consistency. The word consistency came up twice. It sounded rehearsed. Someone laughed at a commercial playing on a phone, loud enough to end the discussion without answering anything important. That seemed intentional to everyone involved there. The security app on the wall showed a maintenance notice instead of the usual feed. Scheduled downtime, apparently. Convenient timing. The PDF had no signature from either of them, just my name typed at the bottom, like a suggestion. The effective date matched the renewal notice taped to the fridge for their bank loan, the one due next month. I'd noticed it before. This time, the alignment felt deliberate. So, my sister said, half smiling, you'll keep paying, right? The question hung there. No accusation, no joke, just logistics. The transfer went through that night. Same amount as requested, same account, same routine. The banking app chimed once. Transfer successful. No one reacted. Margaret cleared a drawer. Robert turned on the dishwasher. My sister went back to her screen. The stove beeped, annoyed at being ignored. Standing by the counter, my phone buzzed again. Then again, an email notification filled the screen. We need to verify a payment related to a property you're associated with. The bank called the next morning. Not my parents, me. The number showed a local branch, the same one 5 minutes from the house. The woman on the line spoke calmly, like she was reading from something laminated. Since you're the consistent payer, we just need to confirm a few details. Confirm what? I asked. Your role, she said, financially. That word landed heavier than she intended. An appointment was suggested, same day. I went. The lobby smelled like carpet cleaner and old paper. A man at the desk took my name, typed it slowly, then asked without looking up, family or tenant? There was a pause, a real one, long enough to notice. I'll just tick other, he said, already moving on. They brought me into a small office with a screen angled away from the door. The explanation came in fragments. Payment history, reliability, risk assessment. The word responsible came up more than once. Nobody used the word owner. Nobody mentioned my parents. Everything pointed toward me like that was obvious. The phone buzzed while the banker talked. Margaret's name flashed across the screen. Declined. It rang again. Declined again. Back at the house that evening, the dining table was full. An aunt, a cousin, someone's boyfriend. Plates were already set. Margaret stood at the head, explaining things before I sat down. Emily rents, she said. It works for everyone. Heads nodded. Someone asked how long I'd been paying. Someone else said it was good I'd learned responsibility early. Nobody asked how much. Nobody asked why my sister didn't. Robert leaned back and added something about the market being tough. He said it like a defense. When I tried to answer, Margaret spoke over it. She prefers it this way, she said. Structure. The word hung there. Structure. Like it explained everything. My sister smiled at her phone and passed the salt. The next call came during lunch at work. Same branch, different voice. We're just following up, he said, given your consistency. A coworker across the table glanced up. Still living with your parents, she asked, casual. I nodded once and went back to my salad. The call ended with a reminder that paperwork was coming. Nothing urgent, just routine. Maya Rodriguez found me near the coffee machine when I stopped by the bank again. She didn't introduce herself like someone trying to help. She introduced herself like someone correcting a file. Why is your name on the payments but not on the deed? No sympathy, no tone, just the question. She pulled up a screen and turned it slightly. Keep everything, she said. Transfers, emails, dates. I asked if something was wrong. Maya shook her head once. The increase, she said. Same day as the loan review. That's not random. She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. Margaret called while I was standing there. Speakerphone, without asking. Tell them it's fine, she said. We've explained everything. Maya didn't react. She watched the call end and slid a printed summary across the desk. 48 hours, she said. That's your window. The paper listed options in bullet points. Confirm responsibility. Decline responsibility. Request review. The language was neutral, almost polite. That night, the house felt different. Not tense. Organized. Margaret made tea for everyone. Robert talked about interest rates like a hobby. My sister asked if anyone had seen her charger. The phone rang again. Aunt Linda this time. Your mother's just trying to be fair, she said. You know how she is. The next morning, an email from the bank arrived. Formal. Clean. A PDF attached. Please confirm the primary financial party within 48 hours. No names. Just a box, waiting for one. At work, someone asked if I wanted to move out eventually. I said, maybe. Another person laughed and said, family was complicated. Meetings continued, emails stacked up. Back home, the printer hummed. Margaret was making copies. Robert labeled folders. My sister packed for her trip. Everything okay? She asked. The phone vibrated again. Another reminder. Another countdown. The confirmation screen glowed on my laptop. 2 choices, a clock in the corner. 47 hours left. My finger hovered, the cursor blinking, while the house moved around me like nothing had changed. Maya picked the cafe because it was close to the bank and loud enough that nobody cared what we talked about. No greeting cards, no plants, just tables, laptops, and people waiting for their names to be called. She didn't ask how I was doing. A tablet slid across the table instead. This is internal, she said. I can't send it to you. The screen showed rows of numbers, dates, and notes written in the kind of shorthand that assumes everyone already understands the rules. Your rent payments, she said. They're logged as supplemental income. For who? I asked. Your parents. The explanation came in pieces. My transfers showed up every month, on time, predictable. The bank treated them as proof of stability. Those numbers were attached to a loan file, one that covered the house and some additional expenses, utilities, insurance. There was a recurring note about dependents. That part wasn't detailed, but the timing lined up with my sister's expenses. That's why the increase mattered, Maya said. They needed the numbers higher before review. The word favor finally disappeared from the conversation. This wasn't help, it was structure. The phone vibrated on the table. Margaret's name again. A text followed. The bank needs you to cooperate. Another message came in before I could respond. This one from my sister. Don't make this complicated. Maya watched the screen light up and didn't comment. She just scrolled. "You're not the tenant," she said quietly. "You're the collateral." The line wasn't dramatic. It landed because it fit. We finished our drinks without discussing feelings. The next stop was the records room. No windows, fluorescent lights, a door that required a badge Maya wasn't supposed to use twice in one day. The file was thicker than expected. Purchase history, refinance notes, addendums. A flagged page near the back caught her attention. "The property is listed," she said. "Listed how?" Quietly. The house had been added to a private sale network. No signs, no public listing. The asking price sat just below market, adjusted for speed. There was a note about urgency, another about discretion. "They didn't tell you," Maya said. "That's also not random." My phone rang. Margaret again. I didn't answer. The records showed a timeline that matched the rent increase. Same week, same urgency, a process already in motion. Outside, the sun was too bright for what I'd just read. Maya handed back the tablet and stepped away like that was the end of her role. "Talk to a lawyer," she said. "Your own." The call came while walking to the car. "Why is a lawyer asking about our house?" Margaret didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "I just had questions," I said. "You're overthinking this," Robert's voice came through next. "We're handling it." Handling. That word again. The law office sat in a strip mall between a dentist and a tax service. No signs promising justice, just a name on the door and a receptionist who didn't ask why I was there. The lawyer didn't react to the story. She asked for documents, dates, screenshots, proof of payments. "Can you buy the house?" I asked. She looked at the numbers and nodded once. "Technically," she said, "if you move fast." Nobody called it a good idea. Outside the office, the phone vibrated again. This time it was my sister. "You're making Mom upset." I didn't reply. A new email arrived before starting the car. Subject line: Inquiry regarding property availability. The sender wasn't familiar. The domain was. My parents weren't waiting to sell. They were already doing it. Margaret called again. I let it ring. The voicemail came through anyway. "This isn't how families work." The lawyer's door closed behind me. Papers spread across the table, dates circled, numbers underlined. Nothing dramatic, just options shrinking. The phone lit up one more time. "Please confirm your intentions," the bank wrote. "Time sensitive." I reached for the handle, stepped forward, and didn't answer any of it yet. The lawyer didn't raise her voice when she said my accounts were frozen. She slid the phone across the desk so I could hear it myself. "Temporary," the bank rep said. "Standard verification." "What triggered it?" the lawyer asked. "A power of attorney," he replied, "filed this morning." The document arrived in my inbox minutes later. My name sat at the bottom, spelled correctly, signed wrong. The signature looked close enough to pass a glance. Close enough to slow everything down. "That's not mine," I said. "We know," the lawyer said. "So does the bank." The call ended without resolution. No apology, no timeline. Back at the house, the driveway was full. Cars I recognized, voices I didn't. Someone had brought pastries. Margaret sat in the living room with a tissue pressed to her cheek, telling a story that didn't include dates. "She's threatening us," she said, "over money." An aunt nodded. A cousin frowned. Someone whispered that stress changed people. I stepped in and the room shifted. Margaret didn't look at me. "We had to protect ourselves," she continued. "She's unstable." Robert added something about legal advice. He said it carefully, like it had been practiced. When I asked where the paperwork came from, Margaret's voice broke. "You forced us," she said. The room took that as proof. My sister stood near the hallway, arms crossed. "You didn't have to escalate," she said. "We're family." No one asked about the signature. The printer sat open in the corner, warm, copies stacked neatly beside it. The same printer that had been unplugged during the maintenance night. The same night documents went missing from my folder. Later, in the driveway, a neighbor avoided eye contact, Someone else waved, then stopped halfway. The bank called again while I was still parked. "We need additional time," the rep said, "given the dispute." "What dispute?" I asked. "Between parties." Between sounded equal. It wasn't. At the lawyer's office again, the timeline came together. The unsigned PDF, the rent increase, the loan review, the private listing. The power of attorney filed hours after I asked questions. "They crossed a legal line," Maya said on the phone. "I can't fix this." She didn't offer comfort. She didn't need to. The sentence was enough. The family group chat exploded that night. Messages about loyalty, about gratitude, about betrayal. Screenshots of Margaret crying, a reminder that parents get old. No one mentioned the forgery. The next morning, the bank confirmed the freeze would remain until responsibility was clarified. Clarified meant someone else decided. The lawyer spread documents across the table. Options narrowed into columns. Risk on one side, control on the other. "If you keep reacting, you lose," she said. "If you buy the house, you control the timeline." The purchase agreement sat at the center. Numbers filled in, deadlines circled. My name printed correctly this time. At home, Margaret packed boxes in the garage. Robert labeled them. My sister asked if anyone had seen the charger again. A voicemail arrived. "You're tearing this family apart," Margaret said. The apartment was smaller than I expected and quieter than I wanted. A couch, a table, 2 boxes I hadn't unpacked. The bank app on my phone showed the same message it had all morning. Account temporarily unavailable. No explanation. No button to fix it. Calls to my parents went straight to voicemail. A text to my sister stayed unread. Her social media didn't. A photo went up around noon. The living room, the couch I'd paid for, everyone smiling. The caption read, "Family time." Lunch was a granola bar eaten standing up. The lawyer's office called to confirm our meeting. Nothing else on the calendar moved. At the office, the lawyer didn't waste time. She opened the file, flipped to the payment history, then to the power of attorney. "This didn't happen once," she said. "It happened every month." The words landed harder than the accusation ever had. Payment dates lined up in a perfect column. On time, every time. No mistransfers, no late fees, no arguments. That consistency had been read as consent. Paying meant cooperation. Silence meant approval. I'd treated rent like a transaction. Money out, stability in. That was the logic. Pay on time, don't complain, don't ask questions. That was how things stayed calm. That was how you earned trust. The problem was, calm only worked in one direction. The unsigned agreement came back into view. The rent increase, the timing. The phrase from the kitchen didn't feel like a slip anymore. "This house isn't yours." It had been a line, not a reaction. A boundary already drawn. The lawyer pushed a pen away from the paperwork. "If you want to fight this as a misunderstanding, you'll lose," she said. "If you want to fight it as a pattern, you might have leverage." There was no comfort in that sentence, just accuracy. Back at the apartment, the phone buzzed again. Another message from the group chat. Someone talking about family dinners. Someone else sending a heart emoji. No one asked where I was. Maya called after sunset. No greeting. "They're selling through an LLC," she said, "not a person." That detail mattered more than anything else she'd said all week. "The closing date is sooner than what they told you," she continued, "by days." "Can I qualify?" I asked. A pause, short, deliberate. "You qualify." She didn't offer congratulations. She didn't offer help. She said it like she was confirming a measurement. The numbers came next. Savings, fees, a personal loan I'd never planned to take. Everything on one page. If it went wrong, there wouldn't be a backup. No safety net. No more chances. The lawyer laid it out without drama. "You'd be using your own money to stop them from using you," she said. "It's not risk-free." Nothing about the situation had been. The call ended. The room didn't change. The boxes stayed unopened. The app still showed the same warning. The ESCO documents arrived by email an hour later. My name was spelled right. The numbers were final. The timeline was clear. 10 days. Margaret left a voicemail while I was reading. Her voice sounded tired. You don't have to do this. She didn't say what this was. The lawyer waited on the other end of the line. No pressure, no encouragement, just silence while the cursor blinked. The bank asked for another meeting and didn't say why. Same branch, same conference room. This time my lawyer was on the line, not in the chair next to me. A speakerphone sat in the middle of the table, blinking red like it mattered who talked first. The loan officer cleared his throat. There's been a development, he said. My lawyer didn't respond. She waited. We've identified a potential conflict of interest, he continued, regarding the pending purchase. What conflict, she asked. Given your history of voluntary contributions, he said, choosing each word carefully, the payments could be interpreted as familial support rather than tenancy. Voluntary, that word again. He explained it slowly, like explaining policy to someone who wasn't supposed to push back. The rent transfers didn't look like rent to the system. No lease on record, no complaints logged, just steady money moving from one account to another for years. Support, not obligation. That framing changed everything. My lawyer asked about the power of attorney. Yes, he said, it authorizes representation in financial matters. Forged, she said. Allegedly, he replied. The call shifted. New names entered the conversation. A senior reviewer, a compliance note, a mention of their family accountant, whose name I recognized from tax season envelopes on the kitchen counter. The scope widened in real time. This wasn't just about the house. The mortgage had been structured to lean on supplemental income without naming it as such. The gaps had been covered quietly, year after year, enough to keep everything afloat, enough to push the risk somewhere else. That somewhere had been me. The rent increase wasn't about fairness, it was about closing a shortfall before review. The maintenance notice wasn't random. It lined up with the date the power of attorney was signed. My sister's needs hadn't been a request, they'd been a justification. The bank paused the purchase. Until the conflict is resolved, the officer said. Resolved meant agreeing to carry the weight or stepping away. A letter arrived that afternoon, official letterhead, Margaret and Robert's lawyer. The language was polite. They accused me of interference, of acting without consent, of destabilizing the family's finances. The word family appeared 7 times. Fraud appeared 0. Receipts I'd saved were suddenly reframed. Screenshots labeled as gifts. Transfers described as help. My parents held the original lease drafts. The unsigned version stayed unsigned for a reason. The system preferred clean narratives. At the apartment, the escrow clock kept running. 9 days. 8 days. My lawyer laid it out without softening anything. They're preparing to sell to someone else, she said, if you don't close. Can we challenge the freeze, I asked. We can, she said, but not fast enough. Another call came from the bank. Same tone, different ending. We recommend you withdraw, the officer said, for everyone's sake. The phrase sounded generous. It wasn't. Messages from the family stopped. Silence replaced accusation. That felt worse. It meant decisions were happening without me, again. The lawyer didn't argue with the bank. She ended the call and stared at the numbers. You can still win, she said, but not quietly. Winning meant exposure. It meant choosing where this played out, a table with witnesses, paperwork that couldn't be reframed as kindness. If you miss the deadline, she added, they sell, and you lose leverage. Time stopped being theoretical. Back at the bank lobby, a clerk recognized me and smiled like nothing was wrong. Paperwork passed through hands that didn't know the story and didn't need to. That was how the system worked. Another email landed. Listing update. Status changed to active interest. My phone buzzed. My sister, finally. Why are you doing this? She wrote. I didn't answer. The escrow account showed funds pending. The countdown didn't care about motives. It only counted days. At the lawyer's office again, the contract sat between us. Same one, new urgency. "They've been planning this longer than you think," she said, "and they're not stopping." The clock dropped another day while we talked. 7 days left. If I waited, someone else would sign. If I rushed, the bank might still block it. Either way, the window was closing. The lawyer tapped the table once. "You need a stage," she said, "not a sidebar." The closing office smelled like printer toner and impatience. A long table filled the room, already crowded when I arrived. My parents sat together on one side, my sister beside them, arms folded. Their lawyer leaned back, confident. A bank representative shuffled papers. The notary adjusted her glasses. No one expected me. I took the empty chair near the end and placed a single folder on the table. Margaret looked up first. "What are you doing here?" The bank rep glanced at me, then at the file in front of him. "Are you with the buyer?" "Yes," I said. "I'm representing the LLC." Robert stood halfway out of his chair. "This is inappropriate." Their lawyer spoke fast. "This meeting is not for—" The notary raised a hand. "Let's slow down," she said. "We're here to finalize a sale." Margaret's voice sharpened. "She's trying to sabotage this." "No," I said. "I'm here to close." The bank rep cleared his throat again, louder this time. "Before we proceed, there are outstanding questions." Margaret turned toward him. "We've answered everything." He didn't look at her. He looked at me. "We need to address the payment history." I opened the folder and slid it across the table. No speech, just paper. Years of transfers, dates highlighted, amounts consistent. A second stack followed. Emails, subject lines, one in bold. Primary payer confirmation. Margaret shook her head. "She helped us, voluntarily." "That's not what the system shows," the bank rep said. Robert cut in. "She lived there. That was rent." The rep tapped the screen in front of him. There was no lease on record. Margaret's lawyer leaned forward. The intent was clear. "Intent isn't the metric," the rep replied. "Dependency is." Silence stretched. My sister stared at the table. I slid one more document forward. The loan review summary. A note in the margin referencing supplemental income. The same months, my payments increased. Margaret laughed once, sharp. "You're twisting this." The bank rep shook his head. Without those payments, the loan would not have met threshold. That sentence changed the air. Robert sank back into his chair. "So what does that mean?" "It means," the rep said, choosing his words carefully, "the transaction depended on her." Margaret's face tightened. "This is family business." The notary looked between us. "This is a sale," she said. "Please answer the question." She turned to my parents. "Do you still wish to sell the property under these terms?" Margaret opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Robert. He said nothing. I picked up the pen. The notary turned to me. "As the buyer's representative, do you wish to proceed?" "Yes," I said. The pen moved. The sound was small. Final. A notification chimed from the screen mounted on the wall. No one had noticed it before. Now everyone did. Ownership updated successfully. The timing was perfect in a way no one could argue with. The bank rep nodded once and gathered his papers. "We'll release the hold." Margaret stood abruptly. "You can't do this!" The notary slid the final document across to me. "It's done." No one spoke after that. My sister's eyes flicked up, then away. Robert stared at the table. Their lawyer closed his folder without a word. The deed felt heavier than paper when it landed in my hands. The meeting ended without ceremony. Chairs scraped, papers were stacked. Someone held the door. Margaret brushed past me without contact. Outside, the sun was too bright for what had just happened. The bank rep paused beside me. "You should expect some follow-up," he said. "I figured," I replied. Inside the building, voices rose, then fell. I didn't turn back. The house looked the same the last time I unlocked the door. Same paint, same porch light that flickered once before staying on. The difference was the paperwork waiting on the kitchen table. A rental agreement, 2 copies, Margaret's handwriting on a sticky note pointing to the signature lines. Robert stood near the counter, arms folded. My sister sat on the stairs, scrolling again. No one offered coffee. "We just need something temporary," Margaret said, "until we figure things out." The agreement listed a monthly amount, market rate, no discounts, no family language, just terms. "I'm not here to negotiate," I said. "I'm here to explain." Margaret's jaw tightened. "You don't have to do this." "I do." Robert cleared his throat. "This feels unnecessary." I slid my keys onto the table. "I'm not paying anymore. I'm not authorizing anything. And I'm not managing this for you." Margaret reached for the paper. "So you hate us now?" "No," I said. "I'm done being useful." The sentence didn't raise my voice. It didn't need to. My sister looked up. "What am I supposed to do?" "Budget," I said. "Same as everyone else." She stared like the idea was new. They didn't sign right away. They argued in low tones while I packed the last box from my old room. Nothing sentimental. Clothes, files, the desk lamp I bought myself. Everything fit. Outside, the moving truck waited. The driver didn't ask questions. He loaded, checked his list, nodded. Back inside, Margaret stood by the window. "You're tearing this family apart." "I'm leaving," I said. "There's a difference." Robert finally picked up the pen. He signed. Margaret followed, slower. The sound of ink on paper was the loudest thing in the room. The house exhaled after that. No relief, just finality. At the post office, the line moved fast. A clerk took the envelope without comment. No note inside, just keys. The slot swallowed it. My phone buzzed while walking back to the car. A message from a cousin. I didn't know the whole story. Another from an aunt. "You did what you had to." No one used the word selfish anymore. The new apartment was smaller than the house, but larger than the space I'd been allowed. Boxes lined the wall. I stacked them where I wanted. The couch faced the window. The lamp worked without flickering. The bank app updated that night. A notification popped up without ceremony. "Your account status is now independent." The word sat there longer than expected. A new number replaced the old one the next morning. The joint account closed with a confirmation email. Automatic payments stopped. Nothing dramatic happened after that. No calls, no emergencies, just quiet transactions clearing on their own. Margaret tried once more, a voicemail, her voice careful. "We can talk when you're ready." I deleted it without responding. At work, someone asked how the move went. "Fine," I said. That was true. The rent check for my parents' first month arrived by mail, certified, signed. No message attached. It went into a folder labeled Property. I didn't open it right away. A week later, my sister sent a text. "Do you have a budget template?" I forwarded one and didn't add anything else. The apartment filled in slowly. A plant by the window. Groceries bought without checking anyone else's list. Bills paid once, not twice. One evening, while unpacking the last box, I found the original lease draft from years ago. Unsigned. My name typed at the bottom like a suggestion. I shredded it. The phone stayed quiet after that. No more calls from the bank. No reminders, no countdowns. On the calendar, the closing date passed without notice. Nothing collapsed. Nothing exploded. Life adjusted. Standing in the doorway that night, keys in hand, the place felt finished. Not perfect, finished. The lock turned once. Clean. I set the keys on the counter, powered off the phone, and left them there while the door closed behind me, and the only account still open was the one that belonged to me.